right, everybody. Welcome back to the Creative podcast. It's your boy Adrian, rolling solo today. Today's topic, man, we're going to cover ESPN released a tier, I guess, for 2022, the top tier for all 131 college football teams. We're only going to cover the top 5 tiers. I'm not going to really try to cover all those tiers. There's a good bit of them, but it's on ESPN Plus. If you don't have it, try to get it. If not, you can always just look it up to see all they put on there. But we're going to cover the top 5. So real quick, tier number 5, they got a title as the kind of basketball schools. And in their tier 5, they have Baylor, Houston, Kentucky, Michigan State, Oklahoma State, and Wake Forest. Which, to me, in my opinion, you really can't go wrong with that top tier and tier 5. True, they all are basketball schools. Definitely Kentucky, definitely Baylor, definitely Houston. All of them. I mean, they've always made the Sweet 16. They've always been competitive. So, with those being the top in the tier 5, you can't really go wrong. The team I can see really transitioning to another tier will be Kentucky. It just really depends on, whatever they do for Mr. Stoops over there, and if they want to continue to fund the money to the basketball program, or do they want to go half and half and start funding some of that money towards the football program as well. And then Michigan State, I think that's one you can just really watch to see. Michigan State did a real good job last year, definitely winning their bowl game against I want to say it's Pitt. And then they also traveled to Miami, beat Miami in Miami. But again, this is still Michigan State. This isn't like it's not like we're looking at like an Ohio State in the Big Ten. This is still Michigan State, and they still playing a very tough division in the Big Ten. They still got to face Michigan every year. They still got to face Ohio State every year. They still got to face Penn State every year. So it's one of those battles for Michigan State. But overall, type of, like they said, the kind of basketball schools, tier 5, you can't really go wrong with that tier 5. I don't really disagree. Let's move on to tier 4. So real quick, tier 4, the next one, they're maybe back. This is a good one, and I want to chime a little bit on this one. And their 3 is Miami, Texas, and USC. Are these schools really back? For me, the school I kind of would say that they are, let's say they're trending in the right direction as being back, is Texas. I think Texas is definitely trending in the right direction when it comes to, let's just say, how can I say this? Just with recruiting. Texas is doing a real good job in recruiting. They did last year. They're doing it again this year. They're bringing in some real good pieces. They're making some good choices. Their coaching staff is really turning around. It's really just getting the players to buy into what the new standard Texas is going to be, because remember, man, Texas fell off after Matt Brown. It fell off bad, and even the coach after Matt Brown didn't do such a bad job. I just don't think he got the support that Matt Brown and what Steve Sarkisian is getting. You got to remember, Texas has the money, and it's an oil state, so they're fine. The only thing is what we're going to see out of Texas this year. So they announced Quinn Ewers, which I don't know if some of you watched the video. I'm not so 100% bought into Quinn Ewers. I'm not even bought into Hudson Carr, let alone the 2023 quarterback they pick up, which young man Manning. I'm just not really bought into all of them because we haven't seen their body of work yet. I'm not the type that go jumping all around the board just because you pick up a 5-star or 4-star or whatever recruit you get. And see what they do in the field. But this year, I think Texas really gonna have to prove something this year, because after those devastating losses, and every team they lost to Kansas. I mean, how do you lose to Kansas? It's impossible. And I'm not trying to throw no shame on Kansas, actually I am. But you can't lose to Kansas. I don't care who you lose to. You just can't lose to Kansas. All right. But for Texas, is what are they gonna do this year? Can they compete with Alabama? I think that's really going to be one of their biggest tests. Can they take advantage of Oklahoma this year? Can they really bounce back against Baylor from last year? Are they going to let Iowa State upset them? It's just one of those situations that you got to really watch with Texas. Miami, are they maybe back? We don't know yet, man. I think Miami and USC, for me both, we don't really know. Both those schools got new head coaches, new coaching staff, new players. I mean, USC literally, suffocated the transfer portal and took every player they can possibly get their hand on. They definitely did it. We don't really know. I mean, USC has Caleb Williams. They have, Caleb Williams, who we used to throw the ball to, that wide receiver, forgot his name. But, we just don't really know when it comes to Miami and USC. Trust me, Lincoln Riley and Mario Cristobal are going to do a hell of a job at those two schools. With this new NIL era, they're fine. USC is definitely fine. I mean, USC is kind of like Texas. Money's going to stay there. Miami the same way, but we just don't really know what they're going to really do because, I mean, yes, maybe they're back, but I mean, who knows? I mean, we haven't seen no product from Miami this year. All we know is what they did in their little spring game, which everybody knows the spring games is about as boring as the NFL's preseason games. Nothing really matters. There's no real starters out there. There's always backups. There's always second strings, third strings. Everybody trying to get a good body of work. That's what it is. And there's really nobody putting no information out there for any other scouts or any other team to really, pick and be like, oh, this is what they're going to do. So we really don't know. For me personally, I think Texas kind of has a better trend than either Miami or USC, only because Steve Sarkisian has been there a lot longer. He's able to establish more, but we'll see what Texas does. And just like we'll see what Miami does, because Miami doesn't have a slouch of a schedule. If I'm correct, Miami actually has not going to say tough one, but I forgot who they're starting off with. But Miami has I forgot who they're working with, but Miami has somebody to work. I might look at their schedule. We'll come back to that. But tier 4 for those three, I agree. They're back. Maybe you could have slid in like a Florida. Maybe you could have put a Penn State in this tier 4 of maybe being back. That's just just something you could put out there just to see, but we'll see. Let's move on to tier 3. So tier 3, you can't really go wrong with this. They got it as title as Rising Stars. So they have North Carolina State, Texas A&M, Utah, and Wisconsin. For me, out of those 4, I don't know if North Carolina State and Utah are rising stars. And hear me out. Utah had a hell of a season last year. But what did they do the years before that? I mean, Utah had a very good season. And I think what really put them on the map is how they manhandled Oregon, and both times they played Oregon in the regular season and in the Pac-12 championship. And I think Utah had a real good season in their Rose Bowl against Ohio State. I just don't think they could have kept up. They just couldn't keep up with Ohio State when it came to depth and talent in that position. Ohio State was able to keep rotating players in at that same position, whereas Utah, they don't have the same depth and capacity like some of your big Power 5 teams. Yes, Utah's in the Pac-12, but Utah isn't, Ohio State neither. So you ask Utah to play Ohio State, 10 times, Ohio State was probably going to win that game 8 out of 10 times. You just be honest. North Carolina State, same thing with North Carolina State. North Carolina State had a great season last year. Beat North Carolina, beat Clemson. They did it. They did their part. But, to call them a rising star, is it's a tall task, man. Texas A&M. I think Texas A&M is definitely trending in the right direction. With the defense that they have, the talent that they have the talent. It's about putting stuff together. You can't really go wrong with putting them as rising stars. You can't go wrong putting them in tier 3 or tier 4. Texas A&M, we've seen what they've done. They had one good season, that was with COVID year, and that's because a lot of players set out. I don't care what nobody say. The 2020 season, it put an asterisk next to those teams who had very good seasons because a lot of their players set out. A lot of teams didn't have all their starters start because a lot of players set out, opted for the NFL, whatever happened. But, Texas A&M had a good season. They went 9-0 in that 2020 season. But anything before that and after that, they just really didn't do nothing. I mean, I think Texas A&M had a good – last year, they beat Alabama. But, wow, they struggled against Colorado. You see what I'm saying? So, Texas A&M rising star. Okay, let's just give them that. We'll say Texas A&M a rising star. We'll put them in that bucket. Hoorah! They did such a great thing. Wisconsin. This one is definitely. I think Wisconsin is one of those teams that's been teetering for so long, man. They should definitely be. Wisconsin should be far along in a different tier. I mean, Wisconsin should definitely be in a tier 2 because what they've done in the past years is Wisconsin always starts off hot. They start off great, and then they just falter out, man. Wisconsin is known for their running backs. Good. Wisconsin is also known for their tough defense. Good. But if that's all you have, where in this era, everybody's passing the ball around, everybody has explosive playmakers, everybody's transitioning to keeping up with the pass heavy, you have to do the same. And Wisconsin has had that same head coach for I don't know how long, for eternity, and they continue to get. It reminds me of Mark Richt when he was at Georgia. He would definitely get you a 10 game winning season. He will produce that for you. So Wisconsin, I don't disagree with them being as rising stars because Wisconsin is dangerous. Yeah, you can sleep on Wisconsin this year if you want to. Big Ten better watch out because Wisconsin has a lot they can prove this year because they have a lot of players also coming back. Wisconsin did good last year. They just dropped the wrong games. Let's put it to you that way. But those 4 teams, North Carolina State, Texas A&M, Utah, and Wisconsin in the rising stars, you can't go wrong. I think North Carolina State and Utah, for me, just need to prove something this year for them to stay in this rising star. If Utah goes down to Florida and they beat Florida in Florida, go ahead and pencil Utah in for me. Nothing left said. You pencil Utah in for me. You might as well pencil them into the playoffs because if they go to Florida and beat Florida in Florida, and I'm talking about they beating the AR-15, they beating Brenton Cox, they beating all that talent down there, they beating that secondary. Give me Utah for the playoffs. All right, let's move on to tier 2. It's about to get real fun now. All right, tier 2. How quickly we forget, and that's a good topic for tier 2. Clemson, Michigan, Notre Dame, and your guys, Oklahoma Sooners. Let's start off with Clemson. We definitely forgot after what we saw last year. Clemson has definitely left a lot of sour taste in a lot of analysts, a lot of fans. Clemson has definitely shocked a lot of people after what they did last year, which is understandable. You can shock a lot of people like that. Now, it is nothing wrong with fans and some occasional fans and just people just watching, college football in general to be shocked what Clemson did last year. Clemson definitely dropped the ball. And I think Dabo Swinney knows that. And Dabo Swinney is not afraid and doesn't shy away from it. But Clemson definitely dropped the ball in 2021. But it's a new season. Let's see what Clemson does this year. And from this is just me. If you remember what Kelly Bryant did at Clemson when Trevor Lawrence got there. And if y'all remember, when Clemson went to Texas A&M, it was a battle for the starting job and who's going to win it. Well, in my opinion, with the opening game for Clemson at Georgia Tech, this is going to be a game where DJ ought to do something. DJ's going to be the starter. All right, let's give him that. But you better believe that 5-star freshman that's back there is ready. And if you think the slightest moment that Dabo Swinney isn't going to make that switch, you better think back to when he made that switch when Trevor Lawrence was a freshman for Clemson when they traveled to Texas A&M in Aggie land. And they turned around and won that game. And it was a back and forth, Kelly Bryant, they were going back and forth, and they kept, bringing in, taking out Trevor Lawrence, the other quarterback, Bryant, the other quarterback. They kept it going, trying to figure out who's going to win this game for them. Turned out to be Trevor Lawrence, and then, history itself on that year when they won the national championship. So Clemson is a good team. I don't see nothing wrong with them being in tier 2. Look, everybody has a down season. Everybody does. Every team's going to have a down season. It's all about how they bounce back. Clemson's going to bounce back this year. They still got Miles Murphy and Brian Brzee. That's all you really need. Put one on one side, the other on the other side. You got that Michigan 2021 season. That's what you're going to have. Clemson's going to have that. They got their Aiden Hutchinson and David Ojabo. And that's who Miles Murphy and Brian Brzee are. So if you're thinking Clemson has fell off, just continue to watch this season. Because they go to Georgia Tech and they beat Tech in Atlanta. And they smash on them boys. DJ doesn't mess up. He's a starter for the rest of the season. He's good. But if they start struggling on offense, but defense is holding them in the game, DJ's out the game. 5-star freshman is in. And if he helps them win that game, Clemson is still going to go to the playoffs. All right, Michigan. Tier 2. My opinion, a little bit too fast. Yes, Michigan had a great season last year, but that was last year. Michigan reminds me of Texas A&M. They should be Tier 3 with Texas A&M. I think Michigan's a rising star. I don't think Michigan is a Tier 2 team as of yet. And that's going to just, to me, it's going to come down to quarterback play. And then Michigan fell off. I don't think that, I want to correct this. Michigan hasn't fell off. It's just, we need to see a lot more. We need to see what they're going to do this year. All right. We know what Michigan has done in the prior year. It's not like, let's not forget that it's not like they won. It's not like they will always go 10-2 since Jim Harbaugh has been there. They've had some struggling seasons and they've had some very bad struggling seasons. It's not like, in my opinion, if you say Tier 2, you're saying that they're a very dominant team until they play another competitive dominant team. And Michigan has struggled against, Purdue's, your Iowas. And I'm not knocking Purdue and Iowa, but they've struggled. So we'll see what Michigan does. I think Jim Harbaugh is in a good place. I think Michigan can win that Big Ten. I don't know, man. They play with Ohio State, Michigan State, Penn State. I mean, that division in Big Ten is just it's a gauntlet. It's kind of like the SEC West. It's a battle. It's going to be a tough one. So Big Ten isn't a slouch conference, man. It just got to be careful. So Michigan, I don't know, man. We'll see. We'll see what the quarterbacks can do. They got a good running back game. And then the defense is definitely something that's just you really want to watch and see how it turns out. Notre Dame. I didn't forget about Notre Dame. It's just, what are we going to see? Brian Kelly is at LSU. Marcus Freeman is a first-year head coach. This is going to be his first year coaching the whole season. All right. He coached them in their bowl game and blew a 28-7 lead against Oklahoma State going into the second half, or 28-14, whatever it was. Oklahoma ended up coming back and winning. So we'll see. We'll see if Marcus Freeman will have Notre Dame dialed in the correct way so they can win some games this season. They open with Ohio State, and they got to travel to Ohio State. So it's not Notre Dame. I think Notre Dame's got a very tough schedule. They play some weak teams, but they still play their regular teams, USC, some of the other ones. So we'll see what Notre Dame does this year. Tier 2, all right, that's just, you can put them in Tier 2 just because of what the prior head coach has done for Notre Dame. Just give them that. I will give them that based off what the prior coach has done, what Kelly has done. He did a good job. He did a very good job. He always kept them in the playoff. They always went to the playoff. Even they always went in the BCS era. Yeah, they got their heads knocked off, but they stayed relevant. They ran their schedule. They beat the teams where they needed they're supposed to beat. It's just when they went to go play some competitive teams, they lost. So we're going to see what they can do when they play competitive teams. Because remember, when they played Georgia in Georgia, it was a tight one, but Georgia pulled it off. So we're going to see what Notre Dame can do when they go to Ohio State. Can they keep up with that Ohio State offense? That's going to be the good question. Do they have a secondary that can fly with that wide receiver game? And you got to remember, Ohio State got deep wide receivers. So we'll see. And then Oklahoma. All right. Let me tell you about something. You won't see the same Oklahoma that you once saw with Lincoln Riley. You're going to see a very good defense, but you won't see the same ball spreading around, 5 wide receivers on the field, or 4 wide receivers on the field. You won't see that. You just won't. Or you maybe will. Who knows? Their starting quarterback has transferred from USC to UCLA to all the way to Oklahoma. So we'll see what we'll get out of Oklahoma. I think putting them in Tier 2 because of what Lincoln Riley did, fine. I treat it the same way you treat as Notre Dame. Whatever the prior coach had did that he was there, fine. Lincoln Riley set them in a position to be a Tier 2 team. Exactly. What Brent Venables is going to do, we don't know yet. So this can either be a crashing season where everybody beats up on Oklahoma in their first year, and then the following year Oklahoma bounce back, or this can be a year where they can build off of it, win some good games, might lose some heartbreakers, but still have a productive season. So I think putting Oklahoma as a tier 2 team is nothing wrong. I don't disagree with this list. Clemson, Michigan, Notre Dame, Oklahoma, I don't disagree with this list. Michigan is the only one I think it should be a tier 3, but hell, after what they did last year, fine. Let's put them as a tier 2. And then last but not least, the clear favorites: Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State. All right, let's start off with Alabama. All right, let's move on. Alabama's number one. I mean, they're a tier 1. They have 6 national championships with Nick Saban. Come on, man. Like, there's no disagreeing with this. All right, Alabama, for me, you can go ahead and pencil them in as the national champions. They've done it 6 times. Tell me any other time they have not done it. They've done it 6 times, twice in 2011 and 2012. So Alabama is definitely a tier 1 team. At this point, everybody is just trying to keep up with Alabama. That's all that is. Everybody's just trying to keep up with Alabama, stay relevant with Alabama, and compete with Alabama. And that's what you need to do. You need to be able to compete against Alabama. As simple as that. Georgia, a tier 1 team, which is surprising to me. I'm a Georgia fan. But a tier 1 off one national championship, that's a stretch. I don't see nothing wrong with it, but it's definitely a deep stretch. Georgia has definitely had some very good seasons since Kirby Smart arrived at Georgia. The only bad season was his first season, 2016, when I believe they went 7-6. But after that, 2017, we know what happened. They beat Oklahoma in the Rose Bowl in the overtime, went on to play Alabama in the national championship, lost that one to a heartbreaker, and then they always stayed relevant in New Year's Six Bowl. So they've always had a 10-11 game winning season since Kirby Smart's been there. And then last year we seen they went undefeated for the regular season, lost an SEC championship, pretty much got dominated by Alabama, and then went back, beat Michigan, dragged them up and down the field, just bullying them with the defense, and then pretty much played bully ball with Alabama, So I don't see nothing wrong with Georgia being as a tier 1. You couldn't go wrong with putting them as a tier 2 as a rising star because, yes, Georgia won a national championship. And please, Georgia fans, don't come for me. I know I'm a Georgia fan. I should definitely be saying, yes, they're tier 1. But it's one national championship in 40 years. We will see. Kirby Smart's only been there since 2016. So if Georgia wins another one, let's say not this year, but let's say they do it next year or the year after. All right, and they stay winning 11, maybe 12 games, and they continue to get to the playoffs. I say pencil Georgia in as a tier 1. You can't go wrong with it now. But a rising star, not a rising star. How we could forget tier 2, which is tier 2 how they classify it. But to me, Georgia is definitely a rising star. They're a tier 2 team that's definitely competing, making things challenging. Everybody in the SEC East is really trying to catch up and beat Georgia, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with it. You should always keep on it. Hold on, guys. We got a guest that's about to jump in here real quick.
What's up?
What's up, my brother?
What's up?
Nothing much, man. I'm just sitting here covering this tier 1 team. We about almost done, but I can just chime in. So, like I was saying, Georgia is definitely, in my opinion, they could be a tier 1 team, but in my opinion, they should be a tier 2. As in my opinion, is a rising star. One national championship doesn't make you a tier 1. It just means that you're ascending in the right direction. And then your tier 1, your last one, Ohio State, those Buckeyes. I feel as if Ohio State is teetering between, just like Georgia, tier 1 and tier 2. They're definitely rising. They're definitely competing. They're definitely going to win the Big Ten. I can see Alabama, Ohio State playing for the national championship. Now, barring injuries, this is barring injuries, no injuries in their season. And if Ohio State beats Notre Dame, which I say they will, and I think Ohio State is going to pull away in the second half, like maybe in the third quarter, they'll definitely start pulling away from Notre Dame. And if they demolish Notre Dame, which I really feel that they will, give me Ohio State and Alabama for the national championship. Ohio State, a tier 1, yeah, there's nothing wrong with it. Ryan Day has definitely been keeping them in the conversation. I just don't know if their defense is ready. Jim Knowles is there. He's going to have a very good impact. He's going to bring some toughness to him. But this is his first season at Ohio State. And if you think something's going to happen in the first season, you're crazy. They definitely got some good Jack Sawyer. He's good. But they still got a lot to work with. I think Ohio State is definitely going in the right direction. But we'll see what they do, man. But that's that tier 1. Again, guys, like I said, ESPN released this a couple of days ago. Go look at it. It's their tiers. They're classifying tiers of what they feel as their top tiers for all 131 teams. I wasn't going to cover all 131 teams, but I covered the top 5.